Welcome back and happy 2025 to all our listeners. This is the Boys in Motion podcast. Starting on year two, basically now, second calendar year, we are your hosts, Brian, Andrew, and Tyler, here with episode 30, the importance of strength training for endurance athletes. This is a huge key. If you think running, cycling, or swimming is all that you need to excel in endurance sports, well, you might need to think again. Because today we're diving into why strength training specifically is a secret weapon that so many athletes overlook.
I'll be completely honest. Strength training can often get sidelined in my training plan because a lot of times I just assume that endurance sport, it's all about just logging those miles. But the truth is that a well-structured strength program can make you faster, stronger, and more resilient.
Very true. I was skeptical of strength training at first, but then after adding it to my routine, sprinkling it in there, I noticed fewer injuries and better race results. That's all that matters, really, in life. We're here to show you how to make strength training work for you, no matter what sport and no matter what experience level you may be.
Yeah, excited to dive into this one, but as always, let's first hit the BIM Newsflash. So, of course, happy 2025. This is our first episode in the new year. New year, new goals. I know we have a bunch of events that we're targeting. The BIM athletes have their eyes on around the bay. So here we come, Hamilton, at the end of March. So
13
yeah,
weeks.
it's gonna be a very exciting year.
Yeah,
Fired
all the
up.
goals, all the goals have been set. I think the three of us are all kind of in that heads down into training, looking forward to those goals. And then as we progress and kind of hit those checkpoints, we'll check in with everyone. But for right now, we're just getting in the work.
The training plans have been distributed to the boys who have requested, and we're ready to rumble. I think the boys are gonna get it going, and boys will be in motion effectively.
Yeah. Speaking about motion, Tyler, you've been doing some traveling around the globe. You were recently in Brazil, and I think that shirt might be something special there. Oh yeah, the Brazil shirt. Too nice. Anyways, what was your time like, and what did you learn while you were down there?
Oh, it was awesome. As you can tell, I'm real tan. I got my nice sun hat on and learned a lot. It was a lot of fun just running on the beach and perfect for this episode. They had a nice workout space in the place we stayed at, so just hitting the weights the whole time. Can't you tell? I'm just jacked now, so it's gonna be real nice to incorporate that into my next training plan. No, it was good. A lot of fun with the heart rate, that's for sure. Going from these cold winter runs to back down to the 30 plus days, 30 plus degree days, I mean, just snap of the fingers. So a little bit of getting used to it there. Couldn't run too much in the middle of the day, but it was nice. And saved on some shoe mileage because you could do a lot of miles on the just bare feet in the sand. So it's real nice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the beach runs. The beach runs are great. I feel like you can go like 1, 2 kilometers and it feels like such a crazy run. Your calves are just totally juiced. And then yeah, you look at your distance and you're like, oh, I've only gone like yeah, 2 kilometers, but it feels way harder.
for sure. Yeah, it's a calf burner, and it sounds like you were living your Jersey Coast lifestyle, just gym, tanning, laundry, and then a few runs. Very nice. I hope you
Exactly.
did some laundry.
With no laundry, I had people do the laundry for me. I had no laundry done myself.
And I will say that I'm happy that Coach Mike gave you a little break from your 8 month long training block because I know when you told us about it, we thought you were crazy. So I'm glad you got to put your feet up a little bit and take a little vacation from that big monster block of yours.
Oh yeah, and the longest run on in those during those weeks were, like you said, the beach runs, couple Ks here and there. So nothing too crazy, nothing few hours long, or else they would have brought in the cavalry to try to come find me. So I had to stay around.
Oh, that's superb. Okay, let's dive into the meat of this episode, the importance of strength training for endurance athletes. Starting off with why strength training matters at all. What do we have on deck?
Yeah, I think let's kick it off with injury prevention. And this is, I think, one of the main points that all three of us have experience with, and that is using strength training to just get stronger muscles, which means less stress on your joints and tendons, which leads to less injuries, a stronger body, which at the end of the day means that all of us can train more, do more of the sport we love. So doing sprinkling a bit of that strength training can help us actually be stronger to do the thing we really want to do.
Exactly. Strength training is a key cornerstone of any endurance athlete's kind of toolkit on making your body healthy and ready to rip great workouts and great races. I think, like, just myself personally, and this is what I want to talk about on this point specifically, is with in my corner, my strength training program has become nice and regimented, and the majority of the work that I'm doing with him is to address weak spots that could become injuries. So it's really about managing my body, strengthening what could be a risk as volume increases or as sports change or as I go into actual racing events. It's all part of that kind of 360 body health, is making sure that my muscles are strong enough and that the joints and ligaments that support my frame are also strong enough so that they're not getting injured constantly.
Exactly. That's the main focus there is to get stronger, avoid injury, and keep doing the things you love, you know. Of life, you know, we all want to live forever. Just get strong. At the end of the day, we just want to pick ourselves up off the couch and off the floor when we're 95 to 100 years old, and you could only do that with strength in your legs and in your upper body. So, at the end of the day, just another day.
Yeah, and longevity I think is another key on why strength training matters. So staying the ability to stay active in endurance sports for years to come, strength training is foundational as a part of that. And I think as you continue to age, especially for more seasoned athletes, we'll call more experienced athletes, who are maybe a little bit older than us, especially, as you age, your lean body mass and that muscular, like, kind of skeleton that you have, that lean body mass tends to decrease over time. So adding more and more strength training as you age will help delay that kind of decrease in lean body mass that you see with people who are untrained.
Yeah, now let's get a little bit specific. So we've kind of went over why strength training matters, but let's go over some different specific exercises that you can be doing depending on which endurance sport you're participating in. And for this, specificity really does matter. So depending what your main sport is or what your goals are, you will want to be doing different strength exercises. For a lot of us, if you're not that into strength training, maybe you know a friend that's into bodybuilding, you took some health classes in school, and you know kind of the standard bodybuilder split. That's not necessarily what you want to be doing if your goals are to improve your endurance sport. So for a runner, if you want to mix in some strength training and you are running primarily, you're really going to want to focus on those single leg strength exercises. So that can be lunges, whether that's forward, reverse, side lunges, step ups, calf raises, building those bulletproof calves, something that I've been trying to do for quite some time yet unsuccessfully, but it's a work in progress. Maybe some split squats. And then finally, also the core strength. Core strength is super important for runner, whether that's doing some planks with leg lifts, some Russian twists, some side planks, and then finally also some plyometrics. Doing a lot of that VO2 max work and that speed work, you might want to do some explosive plyometric like box jumps, jumps, even skips, high knees, just to get that really explosive energy, just to work those more high twitch muscles in your legs. And how about for cycling, Brian? What kind of things that might be a little bit different than for runners would you recommend for a cyclist trying to get stronger?
Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap with runners because we're both using our legs so much. But I think for cyclists and especially cyclists who are wanting those high sprint numbers, strength training really, really assists with that performance. But I'm going to double down on core work, which you expressed. Being hunched over in a position like that for so long, having a strong core helps alleviate pressure on your lower back, allowing you to ride longer and with less pain. But I also think that overall posterior chain is so critical for cyclists. So stiff leg deadlifts and deadlifts are essential for building hamstring and lower back strength, which will aid in power transfer. Because really, when you're pushing watts, you're not just using your quads, you're using everything in your legs, your glutes, your back, all the way to your hands gripping the bars. So it can be three every muscle in your body pushing down on those pedals, and you need to be able to apply that efficiently. I think another key is step ups. So actually, what this exercise, so stepping up to a higher surface, mimics the pedaling motion, and doing that will help strengthen your quads, your glutes, and your core. And then something else that people overlook and maybe don't think about so much with cycling is actually strengthening your upper back. So, for example, rows, shrugs are really, really great. Anything to kind of increase the strength in your traps, because over long periods of time, hunched on the bike, helping improve your posture and your strength that helps support your head and your posture while you're in that position can help reduce neck and shoulder fatigue on long rides. So I think the sum there is basically, for cyclists, strength training is very important, especially for sprinters, and those are a few good exercises that you can look into. Tyler, what about triathletes?
You touched on about everything for your whole body on strength training, upper body, posterior chain, and your core. Big things for triathletes as well. With the swim, bike, run, you got to stay strong in your core area. Also, I think lat pull downs is a very important thing to add to for swimmers. Get that a nice pull and catch throughout the swim. Get your efficient stroke, and I think in those transitions, you really want to stay focused on how to increase efficiency on the other sports. So, like, you go from your bike to your run, you're probably pretty sore in the back, your lower back, and then you switch to your run, and you just have to maintain that strength. And with more strength in your back muscles, I think you have a better chance at staying injury free and stay fast on the run course. That's the most important part. So
Yeah, this all sounds great. We just threw a lot of exercises and I'm feeling like I want to get strong. But I think now we are at the tricky bit, and that is how do I fit this in to my endurance activity when I'm already training between 5 to 15 hours a week and I have a busy, work-life balance already. So I think this is where there's kind of, depending on your goals, you can structure this a little bit differently depending on what you're wanting to get out of it. And let's start at right, just like the basic level of you're wanting to build a little bit of resiliency without sinking too much time into it. And we've chatted about this before in previous episodes. And that is actually borrowing time from your endurance activities and taking 5 to 10 minutes from sessions and instead swapping that for strength session. And this is very simple, basic at home, either pre or post exercise. And this will just be going through one simple routine for strength of like a specific section. So if I'm trying to strengthen my calves because I've had some shin splints, I'm going to focus that maybe with some lunges and maybe a squat, something very simple, very short, so that it's hard to miss that exercise and you're able to get it in without too many issues.
For sure. And I think the key here is like you can get 80% of the gains of strength exercise with like 20 minutes or so a week. This doesn't mean that you need to spend hours on your bike or running on the road, swimming in the pool, and also hours in the gym. Really, like, bite-sized timing is enough to get 80% of the benefits of strength training to support your endurance sports. Again, we're always talking in that context. When we talk about frequency, I think in the off season and base building, you can actually kind of work more on that strength and stability training. And then when you're actually in the on season and you're building mileage, you're racing, whatever it might be, but you're really ramping up your training, I would actually recommend potentially decreasing that to kind of more of a maintenance level to avoid fatigue. Because when you're training with so much volume and trying to increase, like we were talking about recently, the kind of 10% per week rule, an increase in strength training on top of that can kind of overdo it potentially. So really you want to think about this off season, you can do a little bit more, in season maintenance levels.
Yeah, bingo right there. What I'm trying to do this off season, a little bit different than prior off seasons. I was trying to just do full body, very low intensity, but kind of keep it like, more like hit exercises. So keep it fast paced, but low and more body weight stuff. But this off season, I read a little bit on it. I'm going to try to go heavier and do lower reps, so just to increase those fast twitch muscles and strength in your big muscle groups. I'm trying to see if that will help with overall strength and power pushing to those upper limits. So I think I read that it does benefit endurance athletes as well, even though you don't use those motions as frequently. It could still translate to just increased muscle and strength in general. So we'll TBD on that.
Nice. I have a question for you too, and this is something that I've kind of been trying to figure out. Let's say hypothetically we are in a block doing one and wanting to do one workout a day, more kind of whole body. Where do you place that workout? I've had different opinions from people that I've consulted with and healthcare professionals of, do you put that on kind of a hard day and combo it to get all of that work in that one day and then allow yourself a hard recovery afterwards? Or are you putting that more on like maybe a day you're still doing exercise, but on like an easier, more like general aerobic day? What do you guys prefer?
That's the story of my life. I always, again, juggle between that within week by week, even just trying to play with the exact time on where I'm going to put that strength training in. But I've seen it work in the past where I've done, kind of you could call it a double hard day, where I do a strength training session in the morning and actually do our BIM bike racing in the evening. I think it kind of complemented itself. Your muscles are obviously a bit more fatigued, but with that, you kind of do that short, intense burst in the morning. 12 hours later, you're kind of doing a short, intense burst in the evening, and hopefully not the same muscle groups. I try to stay away from the big muscle groups like the quads or the hamstrings, but I think that kind of helped me just squeeze in that extra strength training without compromising the running later on in the week. Or I also would try to fit it in sometimes before, what was it, after a swim session, also conveniently at the gym with the swim. So
Well, I mean, I appreciate you slowing yourself down for that BIM race. I know I really appreciate that. But what about you, Brian? Where are you slotting in that strength training?
Yeah, so I'm pretty consistent with my strength training in terms of kind of spreading it across the week and actually doing like smaller daily sessions. So never really more than 15, 20 minutes, but doing it 3 to 5 times per week. And it's a variety of exercises. The one thing that I will say is if I'm really doing and taking a chunk of time to do exercise with strength in mind, I'm generally not doing that on a rest day because I actually want myself to recover fully. But I will also try to do the strength training prior to my endurance session if I am doing both in a single day. And the reason, and I don't know if this is just kind of bro science from my rowing days, but it was always said to me that like you want to train your strength when your muscles have the ability to go heavy and actually practice that strength, because no matter what, when you're in that endurance session, whether it's on the bike or running on the road, it doesn't matter so much that you've done that strength training already because your heart rate can still sit in that zone no matter what. So that would be my one recommendation, because I find it works for me, is to do your strength work prior to your endurance work. I'm also not a swimmer. I think maybe those in the pool, it might be a little safer to do the strength work after, because there is that added risk of drowning, of course, in a pool. So that would be my only little tidbit there.
Yeah, actually, I think I've read up on if you're gonna do both in one day for a swim, you loosen up the muscles. It's kind of like a warm up with the swim, and then you go into the gym or do your strength training afterwards, and you're kind of already loosened up. I actually play. It's kind of funny, maybe a little bit of a sidebar, but I do Thursday sessions. I have a swim, then I play hockey. I usually play better hockey after a swim because I'm already primed up and ready to go. So I find swimming is a good activity to get yourself loose and ready for your next session.
No, that's great. Now, another point on how to structure your strength training is actually how to progress your strength training. So I think all three of us were pretty big fans of body weight exercises, especially to kind of nail form and start training with minimal equipment. You don't need a gym to do that. So I'm a big fan of that. But with any type of strength training, the goal is to continuously progress. So that means adding resistance or advancing the movement. So if you're using free weights, of course, that's pretty simple. You just add more weight to the same exercise or add more repetitions. If you are doing body weight exercises, you have a ton of different options. So one, yes, you could add weight to those same movements. You could also explore the use of bands to add a little bit more resistance as well. So resistance bands are great as you continuously build strength. Or you can look up and like the Bodyweight Fitness subreddit has a great kind of one-page printout on this, is actually advancing the movement that you're doing to be a little bit more complex and targeted, and not so much complex from the sense that it just gets more complicated, but complex from there's more muscle groups involved, or it's actually more targeted and more difficult for that one muscle that you are targeting to move through space. But I think overall, when we think of progression, the pro tip would be to focus on controlled functional movement that mimics your sport rather than just going out and saying, I'm going to become a weightlifter in addition to everything else that I'm training for.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I definitely lean on the body weight exercise side for the most part. I just find for myself that gets me, like you said, about 80% of the way, and then I don't need a bunch of equipment. But if I did have a recommendation on anyone where you're not wanting to take the extra time to go to the gym, kind of a small investment for some home equipment could look like some adjustable dumbbells, some bands, as you mentioned, and maybe a kettlebell. And that will get you pretty far as getting a lot of these exercises and having a little bit of that leniency to have that progression if you're doing some squats and you want to add some extra weight, the lunges, stuff like that, where that extra weight could be beneficial.
I also think with adding weight, something else that's really nice is actually adding like functional weight. So rather than just doing like curls and continuously progressing that, but actually like, for example, for a lunge, if you've been holding a 25-pound weight in each hand for a lunge, and you can comfortably do 10 repetitions at that, maybe advancing by throwing one weight above your head in a hand can help kind of trigger a little bit more core engagement, activation of your shoulder, full chain, rather than just gradually increasing the weight in the same position.
True. Another thing I like doing to those, just quickly, is having a plate instead, or just something with weight in front of you and twisting side by side there too is a good variation for a lunge. Quick honorable mention is hitting some nickels and dimes in between your run workouts. Easy way to track progress there too. You just throw in, did 6 rounds of nickels and dimes. Next week you try to do 7. So for those who don't know, nickels you do 5 pull-ups, dimes you do 10 push-ups, and you over a minute. So you do 5, 10. You wait for the rest of that time. Round 2 on the next minute. You do 5, 10. You see how many rounds you could do. So it's a good way to increase strength quickly, like we're talking about within actual endurance workout.
Oh, okay. So this is something that I misunderstood because I've been doing the nickels and dimes workout as well. But generally, I will do a set of nickels and dimes, so 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and then go run again a loop, and then do it again when I finish that loop, and then I'll try to kind of do that repeat about 5, 6 times. So maybe that's just another variation
Well,
people can
yeah,
experiment with.
That's like a cool circuit. So when I've heard, like in the summer, when I heard you're doing that around that park in Gatineau, I started doing that around our park. So yeah, it's again just another variation. You do what you want, or like I have a little route where there's a couple outdoor like little gyms at parks. So I like hit one, do a couple rounds there, run a couple kilometers to the next one, do a couple rounds there, and run home. And it's like a 7K loop, and you do a few rounds of nickels and diamonds. So just picking up that change, baby, one nickel at a time.
Yeah, and that again is just a great way to kind of work it into the exercise you're already doing. So I think that's a great tip for everybody is try to work it into the workouts you're already doing. Now, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about strength training. So, why don't we dedicate a little bit of time to talking about a few kind of comments that we've gotten from the community and that you've heard over time about strength training. And the first one that we have here is something that I love because I hear it pretty often, which is strength training will make me bulky. That's a hot controversial title and something that I've heard countless times. So why is that not true?
I think this really comes down to the specificity. We're not going there and doing some bodybuilder split or like powerlifter split where all we're going for is pure raw strength. We're really doing strength training to build resiliency and become strong in the thing we are doing and having that doing those exercises for that functional strength. So we're not looking to get big and huge and gain a ton of weight. We're really just trying to be strong for our activity. So
Exactly.
no worries.
Yeah, functional strength, not hypertrophy, which is what the exercise that's targeting muscle growth. So you're really talking about focusing on, yes, developing some lean muscle through strength, but really about supporting the endurance sports that you're doing. And a little fun fact there, like it would take so much dedication, so many hours in the gym, and a dedicated calorie surplus diet to actually bulk up to the level that I think a lot of people think will happen with just a little bit of strength training. I know it's critical for cyclists to kind of keep their weight in check so that their watts per kilo is something that remains in the range that they're aiming for. But adding strength training will boost that watts per kilo, but it's not really going to increase the weight that you actually are as a human unless you're having this massive calorie surplus, which again is tough if you're a cyclist because you've got to be eating a lot.
Yeah, good point. And another one that I keep fighting myself on every day is it's not as important as cardio. I always want to switch out the workout for, a cardio session instead of a strength session, but really it complements your cardio session. So, getting those functional strength training sessions in, super important to, reduce injury and keep your cardio going. So it's really, I think, another misconception is you got to do it.
Couldn't agree more. I've went multiple blocks where I've been wanting to increase my mileage and running because I was like, if I increase a bit, I can get a little bit more. But as I would try to do that, I would get a little injury, nothing crazy. And it wasn't until I really started taking strength training seriously that this block I was actually able to have confidence to increase my mileage and feel like I'm not going to be in complete shambles doing it. And now let's move on to the last one. And this is one I know that I used to say all the time, and I've heard this countless times is I don't have time for strength training. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't need to spend hours in the gym. That's not what functional strength training is for endurance athletes. For endurance athletes, it's about taking 20 to 30 minutes a week or twice a week, and that incremental difference that makes. That strength training just allows you to get way more out of every mile of endurance training that you're doing. So it's about kind of capturing 80% of the value of strength training in as little time as possible, sprinkling that into your day, into your routines. Building exercise snacks is something that I think is critical for every endurance athlete. So again, you do have time because it doesn't need to be hours a week. It can literally be minutes a week.
Yeah, great point. Again, like touching on the types of little tips and tricks we do within another workout to try to fit that strength in, it all counts. So I think the no time at first, I was again on that train. Yeah, no time for strength training, all in on the cardio. But I mean, you could make 15 minutes to make a coffee in the morning. You could put 15 minutes in at the beginning or end of a workout. Put some strength on. So
Frig. I do lunges while my coffee is in the AeroPress. So there you go. Just build it into your routine.
frig, how many push-ups can you do before that thing presses through? That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
love it. I do the same. It's very nice. Got to work for that coffee.
Okay, so that kind of concludes the bulk of the episode, our main talking points about why strength training matters. And I'll put it clearly, for me, it matters because I want to hit big watts on the bike. Why do you guys do your strength training? What is the number one reason you do it? For me, it's big watts on the bike.
Frig, you took that right out of my mouth. I want to get that watts per kilo up, and I want to get those massive daddy long leg quads on the bike. That's really the only goal for me. And I guess avoid injury would be real nice to keep that.
Yeah, I'll fully call myself out on this one. If doing running, which is super high impact sport, but if I could get away with running without doing strength training, I 100% would because I love running. I don't love strength training, but I do it to avoid injury. I've had some little running injuries, and strength training has really helped with that. So just incorporating a little bit, as we've been saying throughout the episode, really does go a long way and keep you doing the thing you love doing.
Beautiful. Okay, so on to chat time. I do have a hot take this week, and it is strength related. So I am somebody who has done a ton of yoga and also a ton of weightlifting before my endurance days. And my hot take is for endurance athletes, strength is actually more critical than flexibility when it comes to injury prevention. And I think the proof is in the pudding for myself is since I've been doing more targeted strength training over just constantly trying to increase my flexibility, the injuries that I had persisting for so long when all I was doing was flexibility to try to address those problems has changed significantly. So I'm all in on strength, and I think flexibility is a little bit overrated relatively.
I tend to agree. I am not a very flexible person either. I just tell people that I'm built different and I can't flex and touch my toes. So I haven't really prioritized that. I don't love strength training either, but I've seen the benefits of including strength training way more than doing those stretches. Now, the mobility work, but that's kind of almost a blend of the two. So I guess that's up for debate.
And this is where I think there's the real gold, which is functional strength while building mobility is really where the key is for me. I've been working on kind of like big range of motion with weight, with body weight to really kind of get that blend of both. I was a weekly yoga man for a really long time, and some of those yoga positions I would consider also being strength training because they were difficult, they worked your muscles, but I mean just like continuously trying to progress on getting a longer reach or flexing in a certain way isn't what it's all about. It's functional strength through range of motion.
That's exactly what I was going to say. With the mobility is kind of that little mix between both. I generally am pretty flexible, so I don't have any problems with that flexibility range of motion. I can't believe, Andrew, you can't touch your toes. It's just not good. I mean, you got to work on that at least.
I mean, if I warm my legs up just in the right way, I've just went for a long run, I'm nice and warmed up, maybe I can in those situations, but not a priority right now.
Maybe when you put the alpha flies on, the high heels will bring your toes in, and you could touch them.
Maybe I need a pair of shoes that has a reverse stack that tips my toes up, and then it will give me a fighting chance to touch those toes, touch them dogs.
We'll have to try.
So you guys are joking about these like funky shoes with higher toes than heels. But this is actually something that I built a custom slant board. I made it myself, which basically emulates that in the sense that it is basically, I would say, like maybe like a 25% angle. And the benefit of this is right after a long run, if I want to kind of stretch out my calves, I just stand right on that board for kind of as long as I can hang, and it helps stretch out my calves. It's beautiful for that. But another key benefit of this is actually doing squats with your toes below your ankles so that your knees are way over your toes to help really strengthen and bulletproof those knees. That's been a huge part of my strength training regimen, is really kind of unlocking a lot of knee strength by building strength on the slant board.
Shout out to knees over toes guy.
That's exactly where I got the idea, and I can vouch for that kind of focus training.
I'm going to take a complete sidebar. I have recently read the book Shoe Dog about Phil Knight, who is the person that created the Nike shoes. Great book for any endurance sports and people that just kind of want a good read or a good audiobook. But when you started that topic, I was just picturing you taking your retired shoes and like doing funky experiments because Phil Knight basically used to take the shoes and he would like take like rubbers and stuff and melt them and build the waffle pattern for the original Nike shoes. So I thought that's what Brian was. I thought he was running a shoe factory in his office there.
Oh, you know I like experiments, but that's a little bit too much. But even for the slant board, I actually went and I picked up skateboard grip tape from West 49 and put it on the board. So it's real custom, and I was experimenting with different, friction surfaces just to make it perfect. So I got a little bit of Phil Knight in me.
Love it. And speaking of strength training, there's been endurance and strength activity that has gotten super, super popular and trendy. Lots of people have been doing it, and that's high rocks. And kind of the reason that I was introduced to it, not doing it, but hearing about it, was actually a YouTuber named Elijah Orr, who I follow. He's a pretty fast marathon runner, and basically he came out with a video that he wanted to challenge Nick Bear, who was doing the High Rocks Texas, and he was also going to do it and see if he could beat him. And I guess just a little context there. Nick Bear, a crazy runner. He runs, I think he ran a sub 250 marathon, just under sub 250, I believe, but also is just ginormous dude and has like a very big bodybuilding background. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on High Rocks? Would you guys do one? Would you recommend it to other people to do one?
I'm very interested. It is kind of a cool mix between, because I guess I don't know the specifics of the workouts in between, but it's a mixture between that strength and then you do a lap, a 1K lap around this course. So I think, and it's 8K. So I think it's pretty interesting, a good mix between that exact strength and cardio. And I find too, it's not just like random lifts. I think it's very functional lifts and different movements involved in it. So, and the guys and the girls doing it, they look amazing, like sculpted like crazy because they have that cardio, they have that engine, and then they also have that pure lean muscle, which is amazing. Just look like a god. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we overlooked the visual benefit of strength training as well, which I think is also something that should motivate people to do it. But yeah, in terms of the kind of hybrid athlete takeover and the Hyrox competition, I think it's fantastic for endurance sports because you're getting a lot of high quality athletes who are starting to work on their cardio, which I think is critical for their health overall. I was once more of a gym rat after my rowing days, and I can tell you, I was not at my peak conditioning because I just neglected to do any cardio. So I think having that balance is key for any athlete because you just become so well rounded. And I also think there's this huge challenge of having to balance endurance training with the strength training without overtraining. So I think that it's a great mix. I would be interested in competing in high rocks. I was looking at some of the times that the athletes were doing in Houston, I think, and it's ridiculously fast. They're running sub 4 minute pace and then doing all of these exercises in between. So it looks like a spicy competition. I'm interested. I know there's a 1K on the erg, and I was looking at some of the times, and I think that I could blast relative to what some of those athletes were doing. So, hey, if you guys want to do it, I'm up for the challenge.
That's pretty spooky. There's one in Toronto. They had it in October last year. I had a couple
Oh,
people
really?
a couple people I know did that one. I think the men elite times are sub 1 hour. That would be real nice to try to
Oh,
crush
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and it's just, I think elite is the same, but they just have more weight for all of the
Hmm.
exercises. But like
Exactly.
same course and same exercises.
Which is kind
But
of
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I kind of view it as like, for me personally, as like something like a Spartan Race, Tough Mudder, that kind of thing, where there's endurance, where I feel like Spartan Race and Tough Mudder lean a bit more on the fun side, where this is like, seems a little bit more serious and a little bit more intense. Maybe it's just the gym environment that does that, but could be a fun thing to do, just like jump into it, not too much focused training, but could be a fun thing to do with some friends. Fun little challenge.
Little sidebar.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, so I'm into it. Like High Rocks has a lot to offer, and maybe after this around the bay session, people will have their eyes on something else and want to be motivated with some other activity. And yeah, High Rocks I think is great, especially if you don't want to kind of lean more into triathlons, but you want to try something new.
Only problem though with that, I the only problem and grievance I have with these races, too short. Just way too short.
But I do have a question for you, Tyler. So, hybrid athlete is generally combining multiple sports. So, does that make triathletes hybrid athletes, or is it just strictly in the endurance man?
Oh, I'm freaking hybrid. I'm a hybrid freak.
Yeah, I mean, no extra time to fit any other sport. So,
Yeah. So speaking of hybrid athletes, it's the combination of strength and fitness. Well, like cardiovascular fitness. So I've got a question for you guys, and I want you to rank, or I want you to essentially pick what do you think would be the most achievable for you and the least achievable for you. So dropping 15 minutes off of your marathon time, dropping 2 minutes off of your 5K time, or adding 100 pounds to your bench press.
Frig, that's hard. Why didn't you hit me with an Ironman one? I could have dropped an hour in an Ironman. That would have been the best.
Brig, I don't know even know what I'm going to bench, but I'm going to have to say adding 100 pounds for my bench press must be easier than the other two. Because 5 or 15 minutes off of those races would be very tough. And I think would be multiple years. Where I feel like 100 pounds, being such a beginner, my base is very low, I think.
That's I think
But I
what's
know.
good. Yeah, that's what I think. What's best is if the base is already low, you could just boop 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 get up to 2 plates within a year. I would say.
Yeah, but also like if you could bench like near your body weight right now,
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah,
adding 100 pounds to
that'd be
that
impossible.
would be difficult. Like
Yeah,
I think all of them take a long time to train for, but I think like you say, because let's face it, we neglected like our raw strength, adding 100 pounds to our bench press might be the easiest.
and we would look like a Greek god. I think so. We might have to try. We might have to challenge it.
Yeah, let me see here. Well, because if I took 5 minutes off my 5K time, I would be like
Sorry,
faster
two
than the
two
record. Oh,
two
2 minutes.
minutes. Yes.
2 minutes. Okay. That makes that's still fast.
Speedy. That's
Yeah,
real speedy.
definitely 100 pounds.
I would
I
the marathon for me. 15 mins off a marathon. Count me in. I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
I
it. I want to try to do it.
I do think for you, Tyler, that is the correct piece would be the marathon. I mean, 5K also is like 2 minutes off a 20-minute 5K. It's very difficult, but it
Be
depending on
speedy.
how your body adapts to strength training,
Yeah,
that could be maybe easier.
that's funky. What do you think for you, Brian?
I definitely don't think it's the 15 minutes off the marathon. I think
Just
that would
speedy
be
boy.
very challenging in terms of like how much time it would do.
That's what it is.
Um, so I think it's either the 2 minutes off the 5K get to 18, or what I would probably put money on would be increasing the bench by 100 pounds. Let's say I could bench 180, getting to 280. That's that's
That's
a massive
wild.
undertaking, right? That is a massive undertaking. I don't know
That
if I
is
could do that.
true. The problem
So
is you're
I,
probably already strong. Like you got to
yeah,
be at the 130 range right now, and then just boop 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 230.
yeah. You know what? I'm picking it here. I'm gonna say it's the 5K to 18 minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think mine would be bench marathon 5K. I think that's my pick.
So
But
you're
I
gonna be
just
like
love
your watch app. You'll get down to that 2 hour 32. That's what you're
it.
looking for.
Exactly. It already thinks I can run 10 minutes faster than I actually can. So what's 5 minutes? Easy.
Okay, well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. We hope that we've inspired you to give strength training a shot because it deserves a lot of attention. It's not just for gym rats, it's for anyone looking to level up their endurance game.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and join our Strava club so you can see all the BIM athletes that are sneaking in that strength training throughout the week. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode.
And remember, we're not medical professionals, so be careful out there when you're lifting those weights and you're doing that functional training. The advice we're sharing today is based on our own personal experience, nothing crazy out there. So please consult a medical professional or a trainer before starting anything crazy or anything new out of this world. You got to do that.
Yeah, so one last time, keep it moving, stay strong, and we'll catch you next time on the Boys in Motion podcast.